Today we're gonna up pot some tomatoes and peppers. Let's go. Hey friends, it's Kendall, your joyful farmer, here to up pot some tomatoes and peppers with you today, talk about why and how we do that. So first we're gonna look at tomatoes. I multi-sowed these tomatoes a few weeks ago. These are rose tomatoes. I put multiple seeds in one container and they've grown really nicely. You can see that they're forming their true leaves, and so they are ready to be potted up. So one trick to getting these roots separated while being really gentle is I will tap the soil off into a container. So I'll just hold it over a container and kind of pat it and turn it. And that will loosen up the soil and allow the roots to kind of tease apart. Now I try to be gentle when I do this, but if you have a little root breakage, it is not the end of the world. So now I've got several plants here and I'm ready to pot them up into their new homes. I've got some 3-inch pots that I'm going to pot them into. I never like to pot up tomatoes into a container smaller than about this size because it really allows for more root growth in that container. And what I'll do is I will just create a hole with my finger and I will, as deeply as I can, plant the stem of that tomato plant. Then I'll water them in and they'll be all set. The reason that you want to plant your tomato plants deeply is that the stems of the tomato plant are actually able to grow roots. They are called adventitious roots, and anytime they're in contact with the soil or moisture or in a really humid environment, those stems will start to form roots that will help the plant to intake more nutrients and more water. It's actually a common misconception that those tiny little hairs on the tomato plant, that those are what turn into the roots. Those are actually called trichomes, and they are really important to the tomato plant, but they aren't what turns into roots. They are those little hairs that serve different functions. Some of them protect from pests or disease, and some protect the plant from drought. And if you end up breaking a little seedling, like I did there, it's totally okay. When you plant it, just make sure you plant up to those leaves and it'll recover just fine. Now this is the container that the tomato seedlings will stay in until I transplant them out after our last estimated frost of the season. So until then, they're gonna continue to grow more and they're gonna probably triple in size before I plant them out. When I do plant them out in the garden, I will bury them up to the first set of true leaves. Sometimes I'll even take off some of the lower leaves and I'll bury that plant even deeper, but that gives it another head start with more adventitious roots to support that growth of the plant. Next, we're gonna look at some peppers. Pepper plants actually also produce adventitious roots from the stem. Luke, how dare you? Pepper plants actually also produce adventitious roots from their stems, but it is kind of dangerous to, if you bury an entire pepper plant stem under the ground, like I might do with the tomato plant, you actually risk the plant suffering from too much transplant shock, and shock from cold soil can result in that plant dying. So when I transfer peppers from their pot out into the garden, I will only bury about 1 inch of the stem under the soil, but I will bury some to give it some extra roots and additional stability. Now when I up-pot pepper plants, I don't bury as much of the stem as I would with the larger tomato plants. The adventitious roots of a pepper plant grow a lot slower than the tomato plants, so I will bury maybe a centimeter if I'm feeling a little bit brave. But when I up-pot peppers, I tend to not bury the stem. I just kind of up-pot them as they are. Another trick that I want to show you, another way to loosen the roots from the soil, is I will actually take the clump of plants and I will rinse it in water. And I'll kind of shimmy and shake it around to get rid of the soil first. And the roots come apart pretty easily that way as well. It just kind of pre-loosens the roots for you. And I'll just kind of continue to swish and separate plants. I will especially use this trick with the water if the plants have gotten a little bit overgrown in their container and they need a little bit of extra help in separating. And same story, I'm gonna put the pepper plants, I'm gonna up-pot them, but just maybe a centimeter of the stem I'll put underneath the soil. So that was 18 pepper plants that I had fit in one container to start the seeds. That was really easy and space saving to do it that way. Some other plants that have adventitious roots are also ground cherries and tomatillos. So you can treat them the same way when you plant them out in the garden. Now with peppers, I will not plant them out in the garden until the soil has warmed to at least 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And if it's a little warmer than that, they would even be happier. I'm excited this year to try my tomatoes and peppers in the high tunnel to see how they do. All right, it's just as easy as that. I've got a whole lot more that I need to do. So I'm gonna get to work and get these in the greenhouse for the night. So that's how I up-pot my tomatoes and peppers. I hope that was helpful for you. I wish you joy on your gardening journey, and I'll see you next time.